Now going to question number 12, we always start with the prompt first, and this one says, which choice completes the text? Now, when we're asked to complete the text, yes, this is a predictive question, but if you just summarize the text, one answer will usually match your summary. So let's try that. In documents called judicial opinions, judges explain the reasoning behind their rulings, and in these explanations, they cite and discuss philosophers. This legal scholar and philosopher argues that while judges are naturally inclined to mention philosophers whose views align with their own, the strongest judicial opinions consider and rebut potential objections. Discussing philosophers whose views conflict with judges' views could therefore do what? So, what's the passage saying? It's saying that the strongest opinions consider and rebut potential objections. And this is therefore going to allow the judges to do what? It's allowing them to consider and rebut. In other words, to explain their argument. And it makes a lot of sense. If I want to maybe argue against a friend's political view, maybe that is a smart thing to do, to recount a conversation with another person. Yes, I heard a person who said the same thing you said, and this is what I told that person. So maybe think of it as like a clever way to get your point across without being too harsh or offensive to the person you're talking to. So it's a really interesting idea there. Let's start looking at the answers. A says, discussing philosophers whose views conflict with judges' views could therefore allow the judges to craft opinions without needing to consult philosophical works. Well, if they're discussing philosophers, they're definitely going to maybe read the work itself because they need to have a strong, well thought out opinion. So A doesn't make sense. B, discussing philosophers whose works conflict with the judges' views could therefore help judges improve the arguments they put forward in their opinions. That's very similar to what I said, which was to explain their argument. So that's pretty good right there. C, discussing philosophers whose views conflict with judges' views could therefore make judicial opinions more comprehensible to readers without legal or philosophical training. We really didn't hear anything about people who lacked legal or philosophical training. So we can get rid of answer choice C. And D, discussing philosophers whose views conflict with judges' views could therefore bring judicial opinions in line with views that are broadly held among philosophers. Broadly held among philosophers really implies the idea that the philosophers themselves agree with one another, which is not really what we're hearing. We're hearing that different philosophers have opposing views because we're hearing about philosophers whose views align with their own. So that kind of implies that there are other philosophers whose views don't align. So we're not really talking about broadly held views that everyone holds. So we can easily get rid of that one. And the answer to 12 is B.